One going in at. Oh, yeah.
Hey, how about that, man? What's up? Good to see you, bro. How you doing? Welcome back to the States.
How we doing, man?
Good.
Yeah, we tried to draft your ass last year. It's all worked out.
Yeah.
You remember that, right?
Yeah, that's what I was about to tell you.
Someday we'll get a chance to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, sit down.
Give the Todd Monken hire a letter grade.
I went with a B-.
Okay.
And I like it. I'm gonna tell you what the minus is at the end, but I like Shedeur being paired with a offensive-minded coach. You know what I'm saying? It looked like he liked Shedeur. I think he liked Shedeur. I don't think they would have brought him in if he didn't have a good plan for Shedeur. So I like him being paired with Shedeur, and shit, he a damn great OC. You know, the Ravens offense been top of the league last 3 years, and before that.
This interaction with Shedeur Sanders and his new head coach changes everything.
How we doing, man? Yeah, we tried to draft your ass last year. It's all worked out.
When Shedeur Sanders originally fell in the draft, there was one team that tried to take him earlier than expected, and that was Todd Monken's Baltimore Ravens. At the time, Shedeur Sanders informed the organization that he did not want them to draft him because he wanted the opportunity to compete for a starting job. And now 1 year later, Todd Monken gets the quarterback he wants for his future offense, and Shedeur Sanders gets a coach that actually believes in him.
Did Shedeur Sanders' QB1 season just officially start for 2026? Listen, we found out yesterday from Albert Breer, wrote an article on Sports Illustrated how the Browns interview process included a 6-question assessment. One of those 6 questions specifically asked candidates how they would develop quarterback Shedeur Sanders. He was the only quarterback specifically mentioned within that 6-question essay portion. So the Browns clearly needed to hear from candidates what the plan was to get Shedeur Sanders to that next level. And then today, the video comes out from Todd Monken coming into the Cleveland Browns facility in Berea for the first time as the Browns head coach. And who's there to come in and meet him? Shedeur Sanders came over from overseas on his trip to meet the new head coach. And as soon as he walks in the room, Todd Monken gives him a big hug and says, hey, we tried to draft your ass last year, for God's sake. It all worked out. So clearly, the rumors, the reports that the Ravens were looking to draft Shedeur Sanders last year were definitely true. And also, it's worth noting that Todd Monken also reportedly tried to recruit Shedeur Sanders to Georgia back when he was the offensive coordinator for the Bulldogs in college football. So there's a history between Todd Monken and Shedeur Sanders, and I think that is a very positive thing. It's encouraging to see that the head coach not only believes that Shedeur Sanders can be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, but also has already tried to coach him in the past. So that's encouraging. I think it's a great sign moving forward for Shedeur Sanders and Todd Monken as the Browns head coach in 2026.
Cleveland Browns just made a move that could change everything for Shedeur Sanders. And if you've been watching this rookie quarterback struggle through his first NFL season, what just happened might be the lifeline his career desperately needed. Todd Monken is now the head coach in Cleveland, and the implications are massive. But here's the question nobody's asking. Is this the right move, or did the Browns just miss their golden opportunity?
Running the building is running the building. So he got some experience running the building. They wasn't too good in the first couple years. That third year, they made a bowl game. They was a lot better. He got coach of the year, so he figured something out. You know what I'm saying? And then he went to the next level with it. So the minus come from you probably going to lose your defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because he feel played. He ain't get the job.
Yeah.
So that's where the minus come in at. So as far as the offense and Shedeur, I think it's a good fit, man. A guy like Monken, he tailors his offense to the quarterback. What you do well, he going to tailor that offense to you.
Let's cut through the noise and talk about what this hire actually means. Because while everyone's celebrating or criticizing, there's a much deeper story happening here that affects not just Shedeur Sanders, but the entire landscape of coaching in the NFL. First, the grades are in. We've got a B- from one analyst, a straight B from another, and then we've got someone who actually played under Todd Monken giving this hire an A. That range tells you everything you need to know about how divisive this decision is. Here's what we know for certain. Todd Monken has a track record that's hard to argue with. The Ravens' offense has been top of the league for the last 3 years under his coordination. Before that, back-to-back national championships with Georgia, where they were dropping buckets and averaging 40 points per game in the SEC. That's not college cupcake scheduling. That's the most brutal conference in football. And let's talk about what he did with Lamar Jackson. 2 years of absolute dominance. In 2023, Lamar won MVP. In 2024, the man threw 41 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions and rushed for 900 yards. Meanwhile, Derrick Henry was second in the league in rushing yards for 2 straight years under Monken's system, racking up 32 rushing touchdowns. Those aren't flukes, that's system excellence. But here's where it gets interesting for Shedeur Sanders specifically. Monken doesn't force quarterbacks into his system. He tailors the offense to what you do well. Think about that. Stetson Bennett and Lamar Jackson are completely different quarterbacks. One's a crafty college overachiever, the other's a generational athletic talent. Both had massive success in Monken's offense. Why? Versatility. Monken runs elements of the air raid offense, the spread offense with RPOs and zone reads, and he'll get into heavy 12 personnel with multiple tight end sets. For Shedeur, who's shown he can make every throw but needs better protection and play design, this could be exactly what he needs. A coach who looks at his quarterback and says, "What do you do best? Let's build around that." One former player who spent a season with Monken described him as a player's coach with a coolness factor. Always in great spirits, always complimenting players, always keeping their confidence up. That matters for a rookie quarterback who just went through the grinder of an NFL season. Shedeur started 7 games when most people thought he'd start 0. He showed flashes, took his lumps, and now he needs someone who believes in him. And that's where that viral video comes in. Monken telling Shedeur, "I finally got you," and talking about how they tried to draft him. But here's the uncomfortable truth that needs to be addressed. They tried to draft him in the 5th round, not the 1st or 2nd. The Ravens were looking at Shedeur as a developmental backup behind Lamar Jackson, and Deion Sanders shut that down because his son deserved a real shot at starting.
What's going to happen with Jim Schwartz? Because that defense has been really good under Schwartz. I know they have a lot of talent, but who's calling that defense matters, and I think that's going to be a big loss for them if he does end up walking away and doesn't come back. But it's clear that Andrew Berry, going into this hiring cycle, was willing to take that risk, and he wanted to bring in an offensive-minded head coach for good reason, because obviously that's where their focus needs to be. The last 2 years combined, they've been dead last in points scored. They haven't had a top 10 offense since 2004. I think Monken can get him over that hump, because he's shown that he's been able to do it really over the last 2 seasons.
That decision proved correct. Shedeur did get his shot in Cleveland, started 7 games, and showed enough to make people believe. The question now is whether Todd Monken genuinely believes in Shedeur as a franchise quarterback, or if he's just the best option on a roster with limited alternatives. The Browns haven't had a top 10 offense since 2004. They've been dead last in points scored over the last 2 combined seasons. Monken has the resume to fix that, but it requires the right pieces, and that brings us to the elephant in the room. What happens with the defensive coordinator? Jim Schwartz built a phenomenal defense in Cleveland. Myles Garrett, the Defensive Rookie of the Year at linebacker, Denzel Ward at shutdown corner, that's a squad. But Schwartz was in the running for this head coaching job and didn't get it. Reports suggest he's considering walking away, and if that happens, this hire loses serious value. The Browns would be gambling that Monken can find another defensive coordinator who can maintain that level of excellence while he focuses on fixing the offense. It's a risk. One analyst who gave this hire a B- said it would have been a B+ if Schwartz was staying. That defensive infrastructure matters, especially in the AFC North, where you're facing Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and whatever Pittsburgh does at quarterback. But let's zoom out for a second, because there's a bigger conversation happening here that matters beyond just the Browns and Shedeur Sanders. This hire sparked a discussion about the state of black head coaches in the NFL, and it's a conversation we need to have. When the Browns were doing their search, they spent 7 hours with 35-year-old Nate Scheelhaase, an offensive assistant with the Rams. He's one of the only young black offensive coaching stars in the pipeline right now. The hope was that Cleveland would take a chance on a young, innovative mind who could grow with Shedeur Sanders. Instead, they went with experience, with proven results, with the safer choice. And look, there's merit to that. Monken has 35 years of coaching experience. He's worked under Kirby Smart and John Harbaugh. He's turned around programs and elevated offenses at every level. But the question remains, when do younger black coaches get their shot? Right now, you've got DeMeco Ryans thriving in Houston. Todd Bowles kept his job in Tampa Bay, though it was touch and go. Aaron Glenn with the Jets is on thin ice with rumors of John Gruden potentially taking over. The pipeline is shrinking, and the opportunities are fewer. There are coaches developing in the system. Troy Smith is a quarterback coach who could become an OC if his offense keeps improving. Eric Bieniemy was successful in Kansas City, but still hasn't gotten a head coaching opportunity. JT Barrett is doing excellent work developing Caleb Williams in Chicago. These are qualified candidates who deserve consideration, but the path forward seems longer and more complicated for them than for others.
About this, it's very disturbing to me what's happened to black head coaches in the National Football League. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I keep bringing it up because it keeps rearing its ugly head. But as I look at it right now, and by the way, Nate Scheelhaase is a young, he's the only black offensive up-and-coming star coach that I know of in the whole pipeline. Well, that's just wrong. I mean, something's going south here.
It's a reflection of society at large, as one analyst noted. The same barriers that exist in corporate CEO positions exist in NFL head coaching hires. Progress takes time, but it's frustrating when the talent is clearly there. And then there's Brian Flores, who might be the most qualified defensive coordinator in football right now. His work with the Minnesota Vikings this season was exceptional. That Monday Night Football game against Dallas, where he completely dismantled their offense with 8-man fronts, masterclass coaching. He wanted the Baltimore job. Many believe he deserved it. But he sued the NFL for discrimination, and that might be held against him by ownership groups who don't want controversy. One high-ranking black official in the NFL, speaking anonymously, said Brian Flores is the kind of black man who scares white people. He's authoritative, commanding, his own man, and an exceptional football mind. But that strong personality, which makes him a dominant defensive coordinator, might be the very thing preventing him from getting head coaching opportunities. The Vikings extended him immediately and essentially said, if you get a head coaching job, great, but we want you here, because they know what they have. This is the complexity of the NFL coaching landscape right now. Talent doesn't always equal opportunity, and proven success doesn't always translate to advancement. It's something we need to keep talking about, keep applying pressure on, because conversations like this matter. But bringing it back to Cleveland and Shedeur Sanders, here's the bottom line. Todd Monken is a very good football coach who has consistently produced excellent offenses with different types of quarterbacks in different systems. He's a player's coach who builds schemes around his talent rather than forcing talent into his schemes. For a young quarterback who just survived a baptism by fire in his rookie season, that's valuable. The concern is whether this is genuine belief or just making the best of a difficult situation. The Browns are 27th in salary cap space. There's no clear first-round quarterback in this draft after Fernando Mendoza. Free agency doesn't offer guarantees. So Monken looked at this roster and said, I can win with these guys. That's either confidence or necessity, and we won't know which until we see them on the field. Shedeur Sanders said something before his first start in Las Vegas that stuck with people. He said, I'm what they've been looking for. And you know what? He might be right. The Browns have been searching for a franchise quarterback for decades. They've cycled through bust after bust, veteran stopgap after veteran stopgap. Shedeur showed enough in 7 starts to make you believe he could be that guy. He needs development, better protection, better play design, and a coach who believes in him. Todd Monken checks most of those boxes. Whether it's enough to turn the Browns into contenders remains to be seen. But for the first time in a long time, there's legitimate reason for optimism in Cleveland. The biggest question mark is whether Monken can hire a defensive coordinator who maintains the excellence Jim Schwartz built. If he can, this team has playoff potential. If he can't, they're rebuilding on both sides of the ball. and that's a much longer process. So, what's the final verdict? This hire is solid, maybe even good, but it's not without risk. Monken has the resume, the track record, and the scheme versatility to develop Shedeur Sanders into the quarterback Cleveland desperately needs. But there are legitimate concerns about the defensive side of the ball, about whether this represents genuine belief in Shedeur or just the best available option, and about the larger implications for coaching diversity in the NFL. The Browns made a safe, experienced choice. Whether that was the right choice, we'll find out next season when Shedeur Sanders and Todd Monken take the field together. One thing's for certain, the future of the Cleveland Browns just shifted, and Shedeur Sanders finally has a coach with the credentials to help him reach his potential. Now it's up to both of them to prove the doubters wrong and show that this partnership can finally break Cleveland's decades-long curse at the quarterback position. The pieces are in place. The coaching is there. All that's left is execution. What do you think? Is Todd Monken the right coach for Shedeur Sanders? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because we'll be tracking this story all off-season long. The Cleveland Browns just got interesting again, and you won't want to miss what happens next.